Now, business interruption, market development and cyber attacks are the top 3 global risks that will give businesses sleepless nights in 2016. Now, in a survey of more than 800 risk managers and insurance professionals from more than 40 countries, Allianz Global Corporate and Specialty found that new technologies, increasing digitalization, and of course the Internet of Things are changing customer behavior, industrial operations and business models. Globally, about 34% in areas such as engineering, financial services and manufacturing cited market developments such as intensified competition as a major risk, while 28% of respondents cited cyber attacks. Now, Allianz told businesses and insurers to review their insurance and risk mitigation needs to reflect the new risk management reality. Now, joining us with a look at the top threats to corporates this year and beyond is Allianz Global Corporate and Specialty Africa CEO, Delphine Maidu. Maidu, welcome to the show. Now, according to your findings, the global risk landscape in 2016 is changing, more for the worse than the better. Now, what are the top threats to businesses in 2016?
I wouldn't say it's getting worse than the better. What I would say is that the landscape is changing, which means that the risk mitigation for businesses is also changing. So we have to look at our risks differently. When we look at the survey, the business leaders are saying they are less concerned about natural catastrophe and less concerned about fire and explosion, but more concerned about, if you take the top 3 risks, they're more concerned about business interruption, more concerned about cyber attacks, and also about macroeconomic development such as competition.
Now, your report also shows that there are differences in the top 10 risks around the world as it applies to different regions. Now, for example, increasing digitalization, of course, technological innovation is not a top risk for Africa. Now, what are the top risks for businesses on the continent?
Cyber is still a top risk for Africa because Africa is also growing in digitalization. But what we look at and compare some risk and concern for Africa that we don't see anywhere else in the world is power blackouts. There's still, the energy crisis is still a major challenge for us in Africa, so that is a concern. Another interesting aspect is that fraud and corruption tends to be the one thing that is at the top of the list for Africa, but we're also seeing that the Americas are getting more and more concerned about fraud and corruption. Another item for Africa is also the microeconomic developments, which is a major concern here.
Well, based on your findings, what do you suggest businesses should do to mitigate these top risks, especially businesses establishing themselves here in Africa?
Yeah, each risk has a different mitigation factor. If we focus on Africa, as I said earlier, power outages are a big concern. So for any big manufacturing plant or any big shopping center, the business leaders have to make sure that they have a contingency plan if there's a power outage. Another concern is business interruption, which is also caused by other factors. If the supply chain for many businesses in Africa tends to be in Asia or other parts of the world, a business person or a business manager needs to make sure that they have a contingency plan, that they do not have all of their suppliers in one part of the world, so that if there's a disaster in that part of the world, then it pretty much stops production for them. So it's understanding your risks and looking at a way to mitigate this.
Now, obviously, 2015 was one of the toughest years for the global economy. Of course, we saw falling commodity prices, slowing China growth, strengthening a dollar, and so on. Now, what is your outlook for risk beyond 2016?
Beyond 2016, as you said, those concerns will be here probably for the long haul. So microeconomic development would still be a concern for businesses going forward. Business interruption is one that is here to stay, I think, for at least for a while as a top concern for business leaders, mainly because business interruption is caused also by other factors that are quite prominent, such as fire and explosion, natural catastrophe, cyber attacks and power outages and things like that. So as far as the long-term view, I don't anticipate that business leaders will see a big change compared to 2016.
Well, thank you so much for those insights, Delphine. Quite interesting. Delphine Maidu joining us there in Johannesburg. Now,